Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to the Garden Report on CLNS Media. Friday edition of the show before the Celtics head down to Washington. Just came back from practice, and we have a special guest here for some talk about the Celtics in general this season, but also their 4-game win streak here and the incredible season Derrick White's having. And it's none other than his father, Richard White, who many of you know from Twitter, many of you know from his commentary on the team. And, a couple interviews we've done as well, Richard. Great to have you here. Finally do a podcast together, kind of talk at length about the team here. And it's been a fun one to watch this year. Very successful team and maybe the most efficient offense ever. And looking forward to getting into it with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm good. Thanks for having me, Bobby.
No problem. So let's start right with Derrick. The season he's having has been incredible, efficient, a step above where he was last year and even the year before that. The shot blocking has been out of this world, and looks like he's piecing together another all-defense season as a whole there. We talked a little bit before the season, and Marcus as well, his trainer, about him putting on muscle, him kind of having a goal to come into the year and post the most assists of his career, which he's right about in range of doing now. And, the shot per usual, kind of a point of emphasis as well. And he's done well in that regard too this year. But what to you has stood out most about the season he's had so far?
Just that he's been able to fit in seamlessly to do whatever the team needs at that particular moment. The other day, Jalen and KP were out of the game, so he took up more of an offensive bent against Utah. And then last night's game, he was kind of he was working hard on the defensive end for pretty much the first half, and then the second half he put some baskets and got some assists and stuff going. So the main thing was just to be better than you were the previous year. I mean, kind of, the first year was kind of a whirlwind. You just get traded and then finals, and then the next year you make it back to the Eastern Conference Finals, but you have the big Game 6, but then you don't end up making it to the finals. So like every year we take a recalibration on what went well, what didn't go well, what we can improve on, and and how you can make the team better.
Yeah, and so coming off last year, what was the big thing he was looking to improve on most coming into this year, and how have you kind of seen that play out? I think to me, it was being more of that point guard, and I think he had those conversations with Sam Casella in Colorado as well coming into the year, and obviously Marcus Smart departs from last year's team, who was kind of in that starting role. He's been able to make it his own, and it looks like he's getting more pick and roll opportunities. Looks like he's getting more time on the ball, also playing a little bit off the ball as he always does. But what in terms of the role do you think has changed the most for him this year, and how has he kind of adjusted to that?
I guess the main part of of that role is just the opportunity. Um, it, there's a lot of talented people in the NBA, and you just need to kind of be in the right spot, have the right opportunity, and be ready at optimum peak to take advantage of that opportunity. I mean, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was buried with the Clippers. Now he's got an opportunity with Oklahoma City. Derek always had the thing where he could do things, but his makeup and the way he plays is he doesn't he said that when he first got there. I just don't want they're a good team. I just don't want to screw it up. So it's in his nature not to be as boastful and kind of out front as some other players may be. And the fact that Marcus got traded, then there was no first Marcus got traded, and then, okay, you really got to step up because that's before the holiday trade. So there wasn't any there's not a fallback plan. You've got to step up. You've got to be hit the ground running. And so that's kind of what his workouts were geared towards. He worked with his strength trainer Michael Robinson, and just so that with Marcus gone, he's going to be asked to play more. And when you're asked to play more, you're going to have your body bulked up to a point where you could go all the way through June, where you don't feel tired. So he kind of felt maybe a little bit tired at the end of last year, and knowing that he's probably going to be counted on even more this year, he really focused on, getting stronger, building up stamina. So, if Joe and the team needs him to play anywhere from 30, 40 minutes a game, that his body could handle it.
Yeah, and he had maybe in terms of that strength you're talking about there, the most impressive stop to me he's had all season, where Nurkic last night, who grabs 20 rebounds, probably one of the strongest guys in the league, had him deep in the post, no help, and he just went right up and blocked him, like straight up. And it's I think he's got 1.3 per game this year. It's always been a part of his game. In fact, one of my favorite stories Marcus told me about him was when he was in college, and I think it was at UC CS, and he was just going up and swatting shots off the backboard and just like doing it over and over again, and saying, I think he was saying he was trying to do it like LeBron would do out there. So that's always been part of his game. But to see him doing it this consistently at the NBA level is pretty impressive. And I'm sure the strength training you talk about is a big part of that. But what do you think's allowed him to just do that so consistently this year as he has?
I think the main part is he's always had, playing different sports and stuff. He's had good eye-hand coordination, and that if people go that well with timing. So like a lot of blocks he would get, like when Jared Allen would turn, the ball would be kind of at his waist, and he'd get him before Jared Allen could get it above his shoulders. So just being positionally strong is important, because if they have to go through your chest, you have a better chance. And then the added strength is, like you said, maybe a year and a half ago, when Nurkic turned, he'd be in underneath the basket because he just couldn't be physical enough to stop somebody like that. So, I mean, he's not going to always get that, but you put yourself in the best position that you can, and then you live with the results.
What's this? Oh, we got a friend there. Pop. Yeah. Who we got there?
That's Nalia. That's a black lab.
All right. Well, we'll welcome her in too. And I was gonna ask too. What this season's been like for you. Obviously, big voice on Twitter. You always have been. I think Derrick said, like, even back to the San Antonio days, you would tweet a lot, you would interact with fans, but it gets to another level when it's the Celtics fan base and it's people all over the world. And I think this year in general, you've talked to people who have been more on the positive side of things, who have kind of embraced this year and enjoyed it, and then the people who are freaking out after every loss and kind of panicking sometimes, and being a little bit more the pessimistic side of things. So I don't know if I'll call you like the voice of reason or whatever, but you've kind of been the therapist for the fans to some degree this year, just kind of reaching out to different people who are saying different things, and having those conversations online. What's that been like for you? And how have you just kind of felt about interacting with the fan base this year, and what you've seen people saying and stuff like that?
So, I mean, yeah, I've done it before, but like you said, with in San Antonio, it wasn't that nearly as profound and as far-reaching as it is here in Boston. I mean, it's like sometimes you have to, you can't say some of the things you want to say because of who you are, who you're related to, and such. So, I mean, it's just sometimes it just gets kind of overwhelming. I mean, like the end of the year, whatever, like basically on the way I looked at it was the better Derrick played before this year, the more hair and forehead comments we would get, and that would just kind of kind of get at me because you don't have anything to say about the person's game, but you want to pick on something that you think, and because you put something out there and one person laughs at it, then it just it kind of goes viral and everybody thinks it's like someone doing a knock knock joke or your mama joke or whatever. It just keeps going and going. I mean, you get that all the time. And then I kind of once I kind of took a step back and said that it's coming from a place of they have empathy and they're jealous. So first it was like with Derrick, and then it started to take hold on some of the things they're saying about different Celtics. Jalen can't go left, and I mean, okay, so Jalen may have had a problem going left, whatever, a couple of years ago, but this is 2024, and he's doing well. And he's doing well now, but that joke still reigns supreme. Or he's the most. He has the highest contract. Okay, someone's going to have the highest contract. I mean, Timothy Mozgov back in the day had the highest contract. It just depends on when your free agency takes hold and where the salary cap is at that time. I mean, Jalen is technically not the most. He's not the highest paid player on the team. I mean, Drew and KP make more than JB does, but we don't want to let facts get in the way of people ranting, raving about something that may or may not happen, next year. And even if JB has his contract next year, I mean Jason's going to sign his, so it's like, and then whoever else, there's all it's it's funny money. The salaries are just going to keep going up and up and up. So I just try to get people focused on reporting and talking about the actual stats, things that happen in the game, instead of trying to interject and make yourself feel good about, I said this funny one liner, or I have this preposterous 14 play parlay that may or may not happen. So it's like we someone says, oh, well, they can't do this, and if they're right, they you hear about I won 2 million on this 14. But if they're wrong, you don't hear anything. It's like there's no accountability. I mean, yeah, if every day you play a 14 team parlay, you may hit one and you may get $2 million, whatever. But how much are you losing before you get that hit, if you even ever get it? So that's kind of the way I look at some of the things with Twitter. And so
Yeah, that's a good point. That's changed it for sure too. Like what people's perspective, what they're coming at it from. Do they have, picks or bets on the line or stuff like that? Like that has certainly changed the game. But, the one thing I like about you is that you're coming at it from a fan, because you've always been a Celtics fan, your whole life. So, even though Derek's playing for the team now, you obviously have supportive tweets of him, but when he doesn't play well, you'll point that out too and be like, oh, he's got to do this better for the next game. And you always have the defensive stats lined up. So it's like, all right, this night he dominated defensively. This night he could have been better. And you'll always just have, I think good commentary on the team. And one thing you said recently that I really liked, and that I've said too, is they could stand, I think, to, especially in the clutch time this year, use Derek even more, like in that pick and roll role. And, I'm sure you're alluding to Holiday too, in terms of that Suns game, let the point guard run the offense. I think that's valid. Like, you have Tatum and Brown who have grown as playmakers here, but you have Derek and Drew who are, bona fide playmakers. And you saw that last game too with Drew in the 10 assists. So is that something you think they could stand to have more of, is, more Derek involvement, more Drew involvement, the point guards actually running the offense at times?
Yeah, I think that, and then that only technically makes Jason and Jalen even more effective, is if you have that. Because one of the treats I made before is is when you have the ball, there's multiple eyes on you. So
Yeah.
because that's the thing, stop ball. So you have your defender plus the two, the two offside, depending if you go right or you go left, you got, secondary help defenders. They have your eyes on it. So the thing that makes them really special is, Derrick runs pick and roll. He runs it with KP. He can hit KP for that three, and he makes that at an absurd rate. Or he could turn the corner, and then KP goes with him, and he can get the lob. Okay, so the other part of that is if they somehow take away that the first two options, that means that JB or Jason are open with only their man in front of them.
Yeah.
And you take your chances, you take your chances with that. So that's the only thing, because I mean, sometimes it gets, it's a long season and people are trying to do different things and you want to try different things. And, at first I was like, oh man, why aren't they going back to the, Derrick KP pick and roll? But then it's like, okay, so they're playing this season, they're winning. I mean, they don't have to be perfect, in games 1 through 82. So they're seeing what they have. So in the playoffs, I think they're probably going to go to the Derrick and the Derrick and KP pick and roll, because then that opens up even a lot more of the offense, or something where Drew sets a screen for Tatum and does the short roll, because then that short roll, they run that short roll offense, then you're going to get, Derrick in the corner, KP, or JB with a wide open good look. So there's a lot of things that they do during the year that, after the year they'll reassess where they stand with that, and then we'll see what works. I mean, the only thing that sometimes is they get stagnant, and the reason why everything worked yesterday, and you can tell when they're playing and when the ball is moving. Al got 10 threes. He made 6. When the ball doesn't move, you get nothing from Al. You can't, because it's stuck. They're in a double team. They can't find Al. It's not open. But when they're moving the ball around, Al had 10 threes. Yeah, I think he had 2 or 3 post ups. I mean, he was part of the offense. Doesn't mean that the Jays. I mean, the Jays still. I mean, what, Brown had 37, Tatum had 26, but key was Al got 12, 15 shots, and that means the ball's moving. If the ball's moving, they can't be defended. Every time the ball sticks, they can get defended. So
Yeah. And I'm always interested how that works at that level, because I think, I looked it up the other day. Tatum has 6 pick and rolls a game, give or take. White has 4, so he's second on the team. And pretty close. I think White leads the team in 1.04 points per possession, and Tatum's at like 0.94. So they've both been effective in that role this year, when they've had it. And I'm sure, sometimes if a guy gets a rebound, I'm sure they just go. I think, I asked Derrick about it today, and he said a lot of it depends on like the play calls and what they're trying to get to there. But I'm always curious how that works out, because, Joe does let them run the offense, a lot of it themselves. He gives them that freedom. So I'm always curious, like, is Tatum just kind of taking it? When does it go to Derrick? When do you set up those situations? And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the playoffs, because, again, I do think White's probably the most sound playmaker on the team, just in terms of like making the right play, limiting the mistakes, and keeping it moving. As you said, there's like a different flow and rhythm to the offense, I feel like, when he's on the ball there. Not to say that Tatum and Brown don't do that, but, I feel like Jalen's at his best in the transition. Jason, as you said, he can get into the pocket and closer to the basket. So it's almost, again, you're going to want him on the ball to some degree to kind of absorb that pressure. But as you saw in the Denver game, like when teams are really blitzing him and getting him off the ball, that can take him out of the game a little bit. And that was, where I thought he struggled in that game, is that he was just 30 feet from the basket, taking blitzes and passing out of it and then really just falling out of the play. And that's where I think they can get Derrick a little bit more involved.
Yeah, that's where, sometimes you just let Derrick or Drew run the offense. Because they run the offense, that doesn't mean that they're going to take the shots. In fact, more, over 80% of the time, if Derrick and Drew have the ball, someone else is going to shoot it. So, I mean, teams like Denver, they're staunch defensively. I mean, you can't run the fullback dive if they're in the goal line defense, and that's pretty much what sometimes they do. And sometimes your talent, you can overcome some of that, but the way that this team is organized, there's no reason that if they put two on anybody, that the ball doesn't automatically get out of there and then start moving around, that you get a wide open shot, either at the rim or a three.
So where is your confidence now? We've seen impressive strides from them. I think they're the number one offense, right up there for number one defense too. 10-game lead in the East. Just checked a lot of the boxes this year. The guys, new guys, old guys have figured each other out. The bench looks good. So as I go through like my list of concerns, and honestly, my only biggest concern is that you have a team like Denver that did it, that has a Nikola Jokic. So like the only big concern I have is that there might just be a better team in the West. But of course, they have to get there too. So my list of concerns in them is waning. Like, I think they've just checked so many boxes this year. And, we just talked about maybe some of the offensive stagnancy that comes up. But to you, is there like one more thing you need to see down the stretch that's really going to give you that confidence that they're going to do it this year? Or are you kind of in that place already based on what you've seen?
Just to, get some of the continuity back. I mean, KP's been out for 4 games now, so we got to get him reacclimated back in. I mean, it should be relatively seamless on getting him back into the fray, but there's always, how do you play defense? The rebounding situation. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Nurkic for the past week has been like getting 20 rebounds, so that
he had 31 in one of the games.
So it's like, okay, that's probably not a good good barometer or whatever. So make sure that they're good enough defensively to get a stop. They just need to close it out with a rebound. If they get the rebound, then they can get out and run in transition. Jalen's a beast, so that's easy. The more transition you can get, the less you go against the team's set defense, and then it's really the floodgates really open.
Yeah, no, and I like that Joe's emphasized them attacking switching defenses too, because you're a 3-point shooting team. That's how a lot of teams are going to attack you, and it looked like Phoenix tried to do that late to slow them down, and couldn't overcome the lead fully, but dwindled Boston's offensive success late in that game by doing that. So I know they got into some of that stuff today, and it's going to be interesting to see how they do against those kind of defenses into the playoffs. But I feel like Joe's done a good job this year, emphasizing stuff like that, setting a message, even just kind of showing his own personality out there. And I'm sure you saw him contest the shot after the timeout, which was, when I was sitting, where we sit there in the, loge, out of the corner of my eye, you kind of see the bench there, and I see him going up and contesting Royce like he's like he's Derrick White out there or something. And I'm just like, did I really just see that? I couldn't believe he did that, but I guess his explanation made sense, that you're not going to let a guy take a free shot there. What did you think when you saw that?
That's what everybody's talking about now. But it's like, if you watch basketball, people will try to shoot, and then and people goaltend or block or whatever. I mean, there was one, it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, where Patrick Beverley was trying to get a shot up, and somebody was like literally guarding him during the timeout, so he couldn't get the shot up. So I mean, they were going at it for 15-20 seconds. So I mean, it's not. I mean, it's new because Joe did it, but like Derrick said, Tony's done that. I mean, that's a thing where Kevin Garnett used to do it back in the day. I mean, it's all gamesmanship, and I mean, he wasn't anywhere near. People are like, oh, he could have been in the landing space. Okay,
No, yeah.
near the landing space. You're just arguing for the sake of arguing. And
It-
if that's the case, then why don't the league just say, when the whistle blows, you give the ball to the referee and no free other shots. So I mean, but you know,
well, that's the thing, because I was surprised O'Neal didn't wasn't more like demonstrative about Joe doing that, but I guess in the same coin that if you're shooting after the whistle, you have to expect someone to do that, even if it's whether it's KG at the rim or Joe jumping out like he did. But it was just the visual was so funny. Joe, like he was, in the game, and a nice contest too. The form was really good. It
yeah,
was, yeah, that was a funny sight last night. I'm glad he did that, but
and it's
um,
perfect
go ahead.
because it's on the Boston basket. I mean, if it'd been in the first half and they did that, then they would have been shooting at their basket, and then it would have been up to a player to there. But there was like they called timeout. Players are walking off, and nobody was near Royce when he decided to shoot it, except for Joe.
Derrick did say he was gonna swat it at the rim to make sure it missed.
Yeah,
I didn't see where he was, but
I've seen him do that where he's up at the rim and stuff. So I mean, that's a thing. I mean, it doesn't take much for a player to find his rhythm and get hot. Because I've seen like Buddy Hield does that a lot, and he'll shoot after the whistle or whatever. And
yeah,
good
and he
shoot.
and Joe got into it a little bit after one of those situations early in the year. So you had examples of that. I haven't seen Joe do it in other spots, but he said he has. So I'm gonna try to go back and look for those and find those. And yeah, Derrick said Tony's was probably the best of the year that
Yeah,
he's seen. So, um, but just talking to Derrick this year, and we've seen the guys interacting with each other and just the vibe of the team here. What's it like? And now he's 3 years in the Boston, or 3 seasons at least, amazingly enough now. So he's kind of become one of the more established guys on the team. What's the vibe kind of like with these guys? From what you've heard, from what you've seen, just being around them. Now that they've kind of adjusted the roster a little bit, some new guys coming in, some old guys still there. It looks like they're pretty close as a group, but what have you kind of seen or heard in that sense of just like the kind of vibe around the team this season?
I mean, vibes very very good. I mean, you've got. I mean, used to be the Bus One boys when Blake and them were here, and now it's the Stay Ready group, and with different trades and stuff. So like Springer and Tillman are now ingratiated into it. JT and JB have they're always like hugging and doing different stuff, and now Grant got traded. Now Derrick and Jason kind of have their thing. Luke has come out of his shell, and I mean, you can't help but you can't be stressed and depressed on things with Luke. Is I mean, just this thing see Luke doing, there's got to be stuff that we don't even see, and they just love having different things. It's a long season. You play better when you're laughing, joking, and having fun. I mean, whether it's Luke's alley oop celebrations or different
What do you
things.
think of the cornet contest? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
I mean, yeah. Other than it has like a limited shelf life depending on the person. So like Joel Embiid doesn't work on him.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work on him, and I don't know. It doesn't work on Jokic, but other than that, some of the other ones, it was good. So I mean, like he got David Roddy a couple of times, and I mean, if he does it right, you truly can't really see the basket. because he's in the way. So I don't know if there's a way to do stats on how accurate his contest is. I mean, because he could jump, but then there are some jumps, and I saw a picture today where both hands are up and you can't see the rim, and that's that's the genesis of the contest is to throw somebody off. But I don't
You
know.
mentioned that. I was gonna say, you mentioned Grant too, going, out the door. You're surprised people are kind of piling on him a little bit in recent weeks. Everybody's just talking about like him in the room and his personality and stuff like that. I know he got traded mid-season this year from Dallas, but I was always a Grant fan, and even just being around him, like I guess I could see how maybe he got on some people a little bit, just like being persistent. But I'm just surprised to hear people kind of piling on him since he left Boston.
It kind of goes with like the territory. If you put yourself out there, then sometimes it doesn't. So I mean, Grant kind of in the same mold as like Patrick Beverly or Draymond Green. They're very outspoken. They don't sugarcoat anything. You know exactly where they stand, and they're not afraid to ruffle feathers or get in try to get in people's heads. And so I mean, after that, then it just kind of it snowballs depending. Because I mean, that's just kind of the way of the NBA. I mean, when Dallas first got Grant, they were like, "Oh my God, he's so great!" And why did the Celtics let him go? And then and he didn't shoot as well as he did when he was here, and then everybody soured. I mean, that's pretty much the way NBA fandom is we're with you, win or tie, but but the minute you have any struggles, then that's when you find out who your friends are.
Yeah, and I'm maybe interested to see him coming back next month, and hearing what all the guys had to say about him. Jason did come out and defend him on Twitter there, which I think says something when the best player on the team comes out and defends him like that. Again, I never heard anything about the locker room stuff, like it's being mentioned now, but
No. I mean, but again, you after that's I don't know if we ever figure out or find out what different things are. So I mean, it's like the team goes, oh, that's Grant, and so they're aware of what he does and how he does it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, but yeah.
my favorite quote, Jason. Grant wants me to call him Batman. I'm gonna call him Grant. I got one more for you before we get you out of here. Did you see the commercial? I'm sure you did, Derek, and the Sam Adams commercial. Everybody saw it last couple of days. What did you think of that?
That was pretty cool. He got a local spot, and it was weird. I was like, he didn't give us any heads up, but that's normal with him. That like, oh, I did a commercial. Then all of a sudden, Twitter and stuff, I got all these things where it's like, oh man, you see Derek's commercial, and so we got that there. I mean, it's a chance to show his personality, get out in the community, let people kind of see the inner workings of him. I mean, he's a comedic goofball, so I mean, there was a chance to kind of deadpan some stuff in there, and and sometimes he's just like he said. I guess he said in the interview he didn't know what some of these things are. So that was pretty cool. So he's learning more about Boston, and so and
How do you think his Boston accent was?
I mean, it's still a work in progress. He's only been there a couple of years.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to following him through the stretch run. That he is low key. He's had some funny quotes this year too. I think we're starting to see more of that side of him, like just the comfort, I guess, level here compared to that first year he got here. And we talked about it, and he talked about it too. Like that first year was a tough transition. They went to the finals and all that, but the movement at midseason, I guess, was just that big of a challenge. And then once you get the full off season and then into year 3, it's a little different.
Yeah, he's feeling comfortable there. I mean, he's etched out a role. Um, his teammates, he's got trust in the teammates where they're always talking to him about you got to be aggressive. You got to take your shots when you get them. So I mean that's what kind of makes the team kind of run, makes the team special. They're they're all like cheering for themselves, even like when always like bench shots where you see people going through celebrating on the court. It is the same way whether you're the starter or someone coming off the bench. I mean, when like Brissett had that one, he got the ball and he went and dunked it, and then like Derrick and Al and all those guys were like they just like happy, and so everybody's happy for everybody else, and so that's kind of where things are. So I mean, they're putting the pieces together. I mean, Tillman's now starting to find his niche, and without disrupting what they currently have. So they're just adding and trying to get better, game after game.
Yeah, and that aggression, he told you he was going to let it fly in that game, the 7 for 11 game. Do you still talk to him before every game and, tell him a little something? Is that kind of when he said that?
Yeah. Yeah, it just depends on kind of what they're doing or anything. A lot of it isn't like specific. You got to do this, you got to do that. It's just it's generalities. Basically it's always like the that he wears on his wrist, dare to be great, and that I love him. So that's basically, those are the two staples. Those two are on every. Usually it's just like, be a difference maker, be a stat sheet, make a play. Sometimes depending on how things go, his mom will say, "Oh, can we get a dunk?" But that's
like that Orlando game last year. Yeah, I remember that. He's Richard White. We've loved having him, in the Celtics world and interacting with him. And you can do the same there on Twitter at RamblinRec. Great to finally welcome you here on the Garden Report as well. Appreciate you stopping by and looking forward to the stretch run here, the playoffs. I'm sure we'll talk to you again some point down the line. But for now, enjoy your March. Enjoy your rest before the playoffs here, and get well.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Bobby.